TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
Jared, hey, we're gonna need you to tone it down with the Summer Friday thing, okay?
What are you talking about?
Well, for one, it's not summer anymore.
Oh, really?
Coconut. Also, who is this?
I'm the caddy.
Oh, he's my intern.
Sorry, intern. I'm his intern.
Yeah, he's doing a great job.
No golfing in the office, okay? Summer Fridays are over. You can keep the Hawaiian shirt, but the rest of this stuff, all right? Are you grilling?
Oh, yeah. Did you want a burger or a hot dog?
No, grilling in the office.
It's a good point. We should take this outside.
No, that don't. You put that right back down.
Yo, it's all in the hips.
Oh, dude, come on, we gotta go. Let's go.
Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time of the week for the Breakfast Bankroll with Brady Kannon and Tyler Wyatt talking. So a recap of a pretty damn good tournament last week over in Japan in the PGA. We're going to talk some football this week with Brady Kannon. Going to go over 3 games in specific. And then, of course, at the second half hour, Tyler Wyatt comes in to talk some college football. A shout out to our proud sponsors and partnerships, of course. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play, download that app. It's free. I promise you it will be one of your most used apps moving forward. Viva Tequila Seltzer, as you just saw their new commercial. Summer is out, in comes fall and winter. Great job to CT Bets, that team and family. And yes, the East Coast is cuckoo for coconut, their new flavor. Go out and try it. And of course, Atlanta Steak and Seafood, Terry Smith. Jump on over to Facebook. Introduce yourself to Terry while you're there. Head on over to the website, Atlanta Steak and Seafood. 10% off any box of food that you do order. Steaks, chops, seafood, whatever it is, whatever your flavor is. Use the coupon or promo code STEAKS10. STEAKS10, get 10% off your total order. So without further ado, the one and only, Mr. Brady Kannon.
Dawson, I gotta say, I love the new Viva Tequila Seltzer commercial. I was wondering where that was going. That was good stuff. I don't believe, I'm sure it's coming soon, and I checked, I want to say a couple of months ago to see if my local liquor store had it, but I don't think it's out on the West Coast yet. So we got to get CT Bets to ship some on out to Las Vegas here and see if we can. I'd love to try it. It looks like a terrific product.
I will make sure that, trust me on that. We were supposed to get an order from his traveling guy. My daughter is her 26th birthday, by the way. Shout out, happy birthday, Caitlin. Caitlin turns 26. She lives in South Boston, works in the city. So instead of coming all the way to the Cape, he very nicely just meets her in South Boston, and we're anxiously awaiting our new order this month so we can get some coconut. And I think I can put a little care package together for you. How's that?
Yeah, that'd be great. But I'm sure it's going to obviously eventually be sold out west, and can't come soon enough. I'd like to try it.
You know, I was watching with bated breath, and it was a great tournament this past weekend in Japan. And there were 2 golfers I was really watching. And I hate to say it this way, but you're the professional when it comes to golf. Can we say that Ricky and JT are back?
Yeah. Justin Thomas and Ricky Fowler really have both played well internationally before, specifically in Asia. I think Justin Thomas won a tournament, back when he was winning. It's been It's been a while. He has not won on the PGA Tour since the 2022 PGA Championship when he held off Will Zalatoris in a playoff there. He made a miraculous comeback on that Sunday. It's hard to believe that he hasn't won since then. But I believe, a couple of years prior to that, when he was winning all the time on a regular basis, I think he won in Asia before. And I'm not sure about Ricky, but Ricky, I think, finished runner-up here a couple of years back when Keegan Bradley won the Zozo Championship. I believe that was 2022. I think Ricky finished runner-up. So he's had some success here as well. So these guys just seem to turn up their game. And Justin Thomas made a point to say the PGA Tour should play more tournaments over here. And I thought it was very cool to watch. I loved watching golf in prime time. It came on about 5. The coverage, obviously, they started teeing off around 5 p.m. Pacific time, and then it came on TV about 8 p.m. Pacific time. That was a little bit frustrating. It's like, why aren't you showing it at 6 o'clock at night or something like that, not long after they tee off? The sports equinox going on in October, right? Let's throw a little golf on there as well. But no, I thought the course was beautiful. I like how difficult it played. We almost, we had a couple guys that flashed. JJ Spawn had another good finish for us. Now this time of year, we're obviously concentrated primarily on football, or I should say we split our time with football. So I'm not getting as heavy into the risk on the golf bets. So I'm not playing the top 20s and not as many head-to-heads and all that type of stuff. But, I think we had 2 guys finish top 20 in this tournament if you're going along that route. I really enjoyed it. Now we get a week off and we get back after it next week in Mexico, a little bit of a tropical run here. They will play in Cabo San Lucas at Tiger Woods' course, where Eric Van Rooyen won last year. Diamante, El Cardinal Diamante, I believe is what they call the course in Cabo San Lucas. And then we go to Bermuda, the Bermuda Championship. And then back to St. Simon's Island, Georgia, Sea Island Resort for the RSM Classic, where your defending champion is Ludwig Oberg. So that will be cool to see him. I'm sure he'll be there again. Haven't seen him in a little while since Colorado for the BMW Championship. And then there's one more tournament, which we nailed, if you recall, the Hero Championship in the Bahamas. That's Tiger's little tournament with, 2025 invitation only, star-studded field. Scotty won it last year. We were on him at I want to say it was 4-1 or 6-1. And I'm like, Scotty Scheffler at 4-1 in a field of 20? Yeah, give me 3 of them. So, and then that'll be it. So 4 more events. And then we take an entire month off and we show up again in Maui, Hawaii, at Kapalua, the plantation course for the 2025 season. So it's great having a week off here. Golf's been kind of fast and furious in this fall schedule. Just had a tournament here in Las Vegas. So it's going to be nice to have it chopped up a little bit. As football kind of winds down towards the playoffs, golf will kind of wind down. And then when we turn the calendar in January, football is basically into the playoffs at that point. So a lighter schedule as far as football and a full schedule as far as golf. It works out nice for my 2 sports of choice, where I'm not necessarily juggling an entirely full schedule of each one at the same time.
Before we transition into the pigskin and football, I have to ask you this question. We have so many fond memories of Tiger Woods when he was a kid. I think it was Johnny Carson. He was on that show as, 5, 6 years old or something to that point, to the first win, to the 80-plus wins, to all the majors, chasing Jack. And then, of course, we know some of the pitfalls of as well. The last few years, the back that trying to get at least as, I guess, I'm going to use the word shape, and shape's not right, to at least get us to the Masters, because that's the one course that it's just, as we talk about, 80 golfers, and then theoretically there's about 29 that actually can win. And you talked about Oberg and Scotty, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 to 1. I mean, if you don't have a play on him, you better grab him, because if he's not on that leaderboard and in one of the final pairings come next year in April, I'd be shocked. But my question to you, what do you expect, or what would you like? Just more of a personal question from Tiger moving forward into next year.
Well, I believe he made the cut at the Masters last year, if I recall, and I think he ended up withdrawing maybe after Saturday's round or something like that. The foot was really bothering him. I mean, he's got so many injuries now, you can't keep up, unfortunately. The leg, the foot, all of that from the car crash that he experienced after the Genesis Invitational, I believe it was, a couple of years ago. The back obviously has been a perennial problem. I don't know if he's ever going to win again. And it's funny, we're just talking about the Zozo Championship. That's the last tournament he won. I think that was after the Masters. That was in 2019. Correct. So that the Masters he won in, obviously April of 2019, and then won the Zozo in whatever it was, October or so. But that was his 82nd PGA Tour victory to tie Sam Snead for most PGA Tour wins ever. I don't know if he'll get another one. It's tough, Jeff. I think we've been saying this for what seems like a couple years now, that if he can just make the cut, if you can just see him, and yes, he's making cuts in major championships, but he's not even able to hang around for all 4 rounds. So you just hope he's healthy enough, because we want to watch him. Is he going to win it? Probably not. But it'd be nice to watch him, maybe even finish top 20 and be around for all 4 days. I kind of feel like that's where we are with Tiger right now. And, we talked about Augusta, certainly. I think there's probably some other tournaments where he can compete as well, where he's had success so many times over the years. Maybe the Memorial, maybe Bay Hill, maybe Torrey Pines, courses he's won 5, 6, 7, 8 times. You would think he'd know his way around there. The problem is, or the difference, I should say, is a lot of these pros can go around Bay Hill and Memorial, Jack's Place, Muirfield Village, Torrey Pines, and get a couple of practice rounds under their belt and beat the ball all around the course and do well. Augusta, I think, is different because you get a lot of debutantes and guys that have only been there once or twice or 3 times, and they're still learning the nuances of an incredibly complex property and puzzle to solve, whereas Tiger's done it 1,000 times. And so that's an edge he has on the field, is he knows more about the place and how to play the course and how the putts break and how the bounces, go off, carry him off of certain hills and what have you. So he has so much more knowledge about Augusta National versus other courses where he's won a number of times, but I think they're a little bit easier puzzle to solve for your average tour player. So I think, that's probably maybe why he has the biggest advantage of Augusta, because he knows the course so well. Even Mickelson, at 55, 54 years old, we still see Mickelson compete at Augusta too. So, and again, I think that speaks to knowing the property in and out better than anybody else in the field. So maybe that really is the best place, the best chance he has to win again. There might be some other ancillary spots, but it's funny to say that his best chance to win is a major championship, but it probably is.
And that course and that area got hit hard by one of those hurricanes about a month, 6 weeks ago. They say they'll be ready, and it'll be interesting to see if there's actually, because of the damage that the hurricane made, if there'll be some severe moves to holes, greens, or anything like that, Brady, in April.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. I've heard, obviously, yes, that region was hit. If anybody can pull it off, it's Augusta. I mean, unlimited resources. I wouldn't be surprised if the place looks exactly the same. And that music and Jim Nance's voice, and here we are, and nothing's changed, folks. Settle down. We're back down Magnolia Lane. You know how it is.
Oh, God. NFL, big slate. Week 9 already. You do a podcast about the contest. I want to give you a few seconds before we break down a game or two here. how's the contest going? Since the carnage in week 1, 2, 3, 4, now I think Circa is under 200, but it's been real quiet because we haven't had that train wreck in a while.
You're right. Yeah, a few weeks in a row in Circus Survivor now where there hasn't been a whole lot of carnage. Just a little bit last week, and I'm trying to remember the team the Ravens going down. That knocked out a few people. But you're right. I think I want to say it's around 184, 186, something like that as far as remaining Circus Survivor live entries. Yeah, the Las Vegas Football Contest show is a show that we record every Friday. You can find it on our website, footballcontestshow.com. It airs on Sports Grid. It's all over the place. YouTube TV, all the streaming services, and of course, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. But a couple of former Super Contest winners, myself and James Salinas, and then a former 9-year NFL veteran, Mike Pritchard. We host the program and go through, updates on what's going on in both the Circus Sports Million, the Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, and then ultimately give out our picks. We had a really good week last week, 3-2 on one card, 4-1 on another, and maybe Kelly in Vegas was our good luck charm. Mike Pritchard was out on vacation last week, so we brought in Kelly Stewart to fill in. And one of the reasons we brought her in is because she still has a live entry in Circus Survivor. She did a fantastic job, brought a lot of energy to the program. She was great. You can go back and look at the video for last week if you want to take a peek at that. But she did survive and advance. She was on the Denver Broncos. And of course, they took care of business with the Carolina Panthers. So she lives on for another week. She's partnered with another good friend of ours, John Murray, who is the director of race and sports at the Westgate Las Vegas Superbook, the number 2 man behind our friend Jay Cornegay. So the two of them, Kelly and John, they do a lot of stuff as far as content, promoting the Superbook and bets on football and stuff week in and week out. And they do have a live entry in Circus Survivor. So that was great to have Kelly on the show last week. And we're batting about 500 in the contest as far as James and Mike and I. We had an entry into Circus Survivor. That's no longer alive. But as far as the Circus Sports Million and the Super Contest, we're just kind of treading water. Nice to have a 4-1 week in the Super Contest last week, and the consensus only went 2-3. So we gained a couple of games on the majority for sure. We're going to have to go on a run here, and that's another topic that we could spend an entire hour on, Jeff, is contest theory. When do you start to go rogue and pick some weird games and take some bad numbers to try and advance yourself, past the field? You have to sometimes make some bold moves. You're not playing against the book necessarily. You're playing against the field. And if everybody's picking the same games, you're not going to gain any ground. So sometimes you have to zig when everybody is zagging. And I don't think we're in position to have to do that just yet. If we continue to go south as far as record-wise, yeah, we're going to have to go a little crazy. But if we go on a nice run here, we could position ourselves to be just fine, come December and January.
And my claim to fame was, I think in 1920, I was in the Westgate when I got introduced to
1920.
2019, I got introduced to Kelly. She was my proxy, and she actually was interviewing for Action and the 4-week show on Showtime. And I was also introduced to Billy Krakenberg there, so we talked for 45 minutes. And my goal, other than cash, was to beat Brent Musburger. That was my goal. Going into the last week, he was 47th, I was 48th. And I did exactly what you said. The Monday night game was the Colts and the Titans. The Titans were out their quarterback and their running back. And the whole world, everyone, it was a free bingo spot for the Colts. And I tried to pick up the 2 games, not only to move up, hopefully, in the cash, but of course to beat Brent. And Colts come down, score on the first possession, then a pick 6 on the second. So it was 14-0. Thanks for playing. Needless to say, Brent beat me and I didn't cash. So Bengals host the Raiders, and we talk about losses, and I don't think it's getting talked enough about how big that Ravens loss was. It's the fact now they go to 5-3, Kansas City undefeated, and who would have thought Pittsburgh 6-2 going into the bye. They're all must wins here now for the Bengals moving forward. We're waiting for them. Their defense has been so bad. Offense is their offense. Opened at 9.5 with a 45, dipped all the way to 7.5 minus 5 cents. Next move to a flat 7. Let's see if the circuit does it with a 46. Thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I still think 7.5 is way too high, Jeff. I mean, you think about it. This is kind of like handicapping 101. Do you want to lay 7.5 points with a team that has a lousy defense? The answer is no. The Bengals managed to keep teams in games because their defense has not been very good this year. And it's looked better in the last few weeks. But let's remember, that was against the Cleveland Browns with Deshaun Watson, who have absolutely no offense at all. And then that was against the New York Giants, who have very little offense either. And that score was misleading. The Giants let the Bengals score at the end because they were trying to mount a comeback. That was really a 3-point game. They were fortunate to have a kickoff returned early on in that game against the Cleveland Browns, but never really did much the rest of that game. And then they got throttled by a pretty darn good Philadelphia Eagles team last week. So you're right. The offense is pretty solid. If you look at the numbers, they're one of the, they're probably a top 10 offense in the NFL, just about all the way around. The running game is not excellent, but we know Burrow and Chase, and now Higgins was out last week. He'll probably be back this week, but the offense is pretty darn good. The defense, even, guided by a guy I have a lot of respect for in Lou Anarumo, has really not come around, and that is letting teams hang around in ball games. And I think the Raiders can do just exactly that. My numbers came out to the number being 4 or maybe 4.5 at the most versus 7.5. And then the other thing you have going on here is the Cincinnati Bengals have a Thursday night game on tap. And I haven't done all the research here, but we saw it affect teams last week. I think it's not necessarily, I don't know if distraction is the right word, but I think it's tough for teams when they have a Thursday night game on deck. It's like they just know in the back of their mind that they've got a short week coming up, and that inhibits them. That causes them to be on edge a little bit, and not in a good way. And so I think teams tend to struggle when they have that short week coming up, when they have a Thursday night game on deck, which the Bengals do. The Raiders don't have any pressure. They're just trying to find reasons to be motivated, and I think it's probably good that they're away from Las Vegas. They can be out from under the spotlight of the hometown fans here and the pressure, and the fans that are booing them and the naysayers, and these guys are tanking, and it's probably good for them to get out of Dodge and just be able to go play football. I think Minshew gives them a better chance to win right now. He's not necessarily the future, but he's more aggressive. He's going to take chances, and he's able to cash some jackpots every now and then for sure as well. He's got some talent. So I think the Raiders can stick around in this game, and you know what? They could even maybe pull off a win. We've seen them. They come out and they win games in the weirdest spots. It might happen this week. And oh, by the way, who do the Bengals play on that Thursday night game? The Baltimore Ravens, a division game. So there's a lot of reasons I think that the Cincinnati Bengals could allow the Raiders to stick around in this one.
Speaking of the Ravens, Denver, and what a week for Bo Nix. What a week for fantasy players. Almost put up a 40-burger, 38 points in fantasy. Traveled to Baltimore. Not a fun spot after a loss. The opening number 10 with the 43.5, now 45.5 with the 9.5. Sean Payton has really turned the naysayers back. He's molding his team together. He's kind of letting the guys that weren't his guys either sitting on the bench and watching or moving them to other teams. Will be interesting to see if Cortland Sutton is the last one to be moved next week. Down to 9.5. I wouldn't want to get in front of this Ravens train, but the Denver D's been playing great, Brady.
I think there will be some reaction here, from the general public. Oh boy, look out for the Ravens coming off of a loss. They're ticked off. They're going to crush the Broncos, and they might. But I thought this line was incredibly high, 9.5. And I know the Broncos. Let's not get fooled too badly by the Broncos. They've been beating up on some bad teams. They lost to the Chargers. They lost to the Steelers. So they really haven't beaten a big boy just yet. They've beaten the Raiders. They've beaten the Panthers. Their numbers are really good, and you said it. Their defense is very, very good, and I think that is skewing some of their numbers as a whole. I think if you just look at the Broncos on paper, their stats are better than this team really is. The offense still has some issues, some limitations is probably the best way to put it. But this team is pretty darn good, and I think 9 points is way too many. Again, it's very similar with the Bengals laying 7.5 to the Raiders. I think this number with the Broncos ought to be more like 4 or 5. And, we kind of saw it earlier this year when we were like, why are the Ravens laying 7 points to the Commanders? And then they won by exactly 7. It feels similar here, but again, I think it's a little bit too high. I think the Broncos, and hey, the Ravens are another team. Do you really want to lay 9.5 with a defense that isn't that good? I mean, how do the Cleveland Browns beat the Ravens? How do the Raiders beat the Ravens? It's because their defense is not that great. They're very good at stopping the run, but they are not good against the pass. And if the Broncos can find a way to figure that out, they can absolutely hang around in this game. And like I just said, the Ravens have that Thursday night game on deck, and it's also a division sandwich. They come off of a game against the Cleveland Browns, and next week they're taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. So they've got 2 division games wrapped around a game against the Denver Broncos, and they're a big favorite. I think this is another spot where they could be looking past this team. So 2 big underdogs that I thought were getting too many points here and not enough respect in the Raiders and the Broncos, with teams that have a division tilt coming up on a short week on a Thursday night. I think good spots for both the Raiders and the Denver Broncos here.
And lastly, because we know you have another place to go here, back in when we were growing up, when I had hair and it wasn't gray, 4 o'clock, John Madden, Pat Summerall, the Hogs, the band, Hail to the Victors. And guess what? Hail to the Hail Mary and the Victors. Jaden Daniels, Hail Mary, that was answered. Bad defense, tip ball, Noah Brown, Noah next to him, traveled to the hapless Giants, Daniel Jones, a spot where, I think everyone's fighting for their jobs. I don't know if Daniel Jones will be there next year. I don't think the coach will. I think if Bill Belichick wants that job, I think it will be his starting next year. But a game where Washington opened 3 with the 44, only one way I think this number can go, and it has 3.5 with the 43.5. Thoughts on Jaden Daniels and the Commanders traveling to the New York Giants?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance it closes 4. And if it gets to 4, 4 and 4.5 are key numbers. I don't know if it'll get to 4.5, but I think it could probably close 4 here. And this is a game I had circled. Division games for the Washington Commanders are games that I'm going to be playing, week in and week out. And that's because of their coaching tandem of Cliff Kingsbury and Dan Quinn. And we've already seen them win one division game earlier this year. It was over the Giants, if I recall, at home. So this is the second time playing the Giants this year. And this time, of course, they are on the road, but I'll be on them again, on the Commanders. And if you go back and you look at Dan Quinn's career, when he was the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, he did extremely well against teams that were from places where he had coached before, okay? Mm-hmm. So going against former divisions, opponents that he was very familiar with, he had a great deal of success. Then you look at his next job after that, it was defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. He became very familiar with the NFC East. And oh, by the way, when he was defensive coordinator with the Cowboys, he crushed teams from the NFC South, his former job with the Falcons. Again, being very familiar with those teams. I think he was 4-0 against the spread when when the Cowboys played teams from the NFC South. Now he's in the NFC East, so he's not only familiar with the teams from that standpoint, but it's the team he spent coaching against all last season. So he has a real affinity for success against teams he is that familiar with, more familiar than any other teams in the league, teams within his own division. And then you look at his assistant, Cliff Kingsbury. When he was coach of the Arizona Cardinals, he was 7-0 against the number against the NFC East. These two coaches have a pulse on the NFC East like no other tandem in football. So, yeah, whenever the Commanders are playing in their division, I'll be on them, and I will be again this week.
Scroller's been going the whole time, Brady. We know where to find you, obviously, on X or Twitter at Las Vegas Golfer. I know where to find you, of course, on Sports Grid. But as we always end here, want everyone to know where they can find any written work, or if not, what your Sports Grid schedule is for the rest of the week.
Yeah, no golf this week, of course, on the PGA Tour. They take a week off, but we'll be back after it next week when they head to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. You can find my article on Tuesday at golf.com, and then on Wednesday and Sunday at PGAtour.com. And then, about 5 days a week, I'm on Sports Grid a couple different times today. I'll be on later tonight at 7:30 Eastern Time, and then again at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we talked about the Las Vegas Football Contest show. That is available on Friday nights, typically about 9 or 10 p.m. Eastern Time. You can take a listen, get all your contest information, and then also you can just take that information for the bets that you're making for the Sunday slate of NFL games. Whether you're in a contest or not, there's a lot of good breakdown of the NFL card on that Las Vegas Football Contest show. Again, footballcontestshow.com. And that's about it, my friend. Other than that, we're making tee times for people that want to play golf here in Las Vegas.
And don't forget Saturday night Sports Grid.
That's right. Yeah, with Jeff Dawson himself. We'll see if we can get you on for some college football talk again this week.
The one and only Brady Kannon. Go follow him at Las Vegas Golf. But thank you so much, Brady. Have a blessed day, a better week, and we'll catch up soon. Ryan, quick. Brady Kannon, go follow him at Las Vegas Golf, but make sure you check in on him today, a couple times tonight on the Sports Grid, and his podcast on Friday with a couple professionals and experts, of course, talking all the contests, the circuit, the Westgate, and of course Saturday night with Adam Kaufman on the Sports Grid. Second half of the show, can't do my college football during the week without this fine young gentleman, the one and only Mr. Tyler Wyatt.
What's happening, JD?
Tyler, how are you? How was your weekend?
Weekend was great. Very, very good Saturday. Our projections are pinned to our Twitter account for the weekend on Thursday there. Very, very good Saturday. And then a pretty good NFL Sunday. Not a big NFL, too tough for me to beat. I don't study it day in and day out. We had a little bit of gamble there on Sunday that worked out. But yeah, Saturday really, really good. And then we're inching closer to college basketball. You and I obviously will spend a great deal of time talking college basketball, but we are on the doorstep of college basketball tipping off here in just a couple of days. So this is, if you are a sports fan, this is obviously, I think, March Madness, the Masters. But the next couple of weeks, we get the NFL, NBA, NHL, college football, college basketball. We have all the sports kind of colliding here at the 1st of November. So it's one of my favorite here 2-week, 3-week stretches where we get to kind of overlap some sports. But yeah, it's good Saturday for us. And we're doing all of our college basketball homework right now.
Well, before we get into the college football, I want to stay right there because I'm a diehard UConn guy. We're going for uncharted waters unless your name's John Wooden for a three-peat. They used to lose a lot of players and they would have to rebuild. Well, Hurley has got the culture. He knows what he's looking for. They lose three guys to the NBA. That's okay. And it'll be interesting to see how they clog the middle without King Kong clinging there. But they got Slam Johnson. They got Daria. They got Caravan who came back. They run right to Michigan State. They get a power forward there. They run to St. Mary's and get an off guard there. It's early. All the games start on Monday. Thoughts on UConn? And listen, I know Alabama's there. I know Kansas is there. A big year for Gonzaga. The list is endless. It's early, but I got to talk some college hoops. What is your numbers? What are your eyes? I know you're doing the homework. What are you seeing so far?
Oh, UConn is going to be on the short list of national title contenders on just about everybody's list, deservedly so. A couple of key returners, I think, and then you mentioned, Hurley was able to get out in the transfer portal. He got some big names, some guys that I think that can contribute pretty early. You'll see a couple of guys there that I think are good for 8, 10, 12 points that weren't on the roster last year. But yeah, this is a UConn team. They'll be tested early. He's not shied away from scheduling just about anyone. So they'll go out of the conference. Non-conference schedule is really tough. Is this going to be a dominant team that we've seen the last couple of years? This team may be a little slower to start, but they're going to finish just fine. This is a team. I love the pieces that Hurley's put together. He did it a little different way this year. But yeah, this is a team that deserves to be in that short 3, 4, 5 teams when you think of national champion contenders. Kansas, I think, deservedly. SEC is going to be pretty good this year. Kentucky, there was some fear there with the coaching change that Kentucky would have a couple of off years. Mark Pope cemented a pretty solid class through the portal. Arkansas, obviously, John Calipari brought some of the Kentucky pieces, was able to go in and sign 2 top 10 kids and 3 of the top 20. So Arkansas should be really good. Tennessee, preseason top 15 team, took a tough loss in the exhibition game there on Sunday to a really good Indiana team. Big Ten will be good as always. Yeah, this is UConn should be mentioned with Kansas, should be mentioned with some of those perennial favorites. But right now they're the darling. They're the team that other teams are being compared to. It's not, UConn is at the top right now in the college basketball world, and rightfully so. I think they have the best coach in the game. When Calipari left Kentucky, I was a big proponent. He was number 1, number 2, number 3 on my list. He decided to stay home. I understand what he's built there. He's into the legacy conversation now. It's not just he won a title. It's he's cementing himself in college basketball. Great conversations, and I like to see that. Selfishly, I wanted him to be at Kentucky, but I'm a fan of a guy choosing to stay and kind of build and do it on his own way. UConn basketball, historically, we don't have to talk a ton of success throughout the decades, but what Hurley is doing is he's trying to build it on his own and kind of make a name for himself. I do like to see that. UConn will be just fine. We'll have plenty of time to talk college basketball. Obviously, the Huskies, one of my top 2 or 3 picks to win a national title this year again. And if he wins the 24 title, he's putting himself into a very, very short list of all-time greats already in there. But obviously with 3 in a row, it's pretty rarefied company.
And you were talking SEC. I know a lot of people talking about the Crimson Tide in Alabama. I think they got 4 returning starters, if not the whole team back, and a team that can, if you blink, can put 100 on you, especially if they're hitting the threes there. So all the Alabama Crimson Tide football naysayers, you might want to jump on early to this Alabama Crimson Tide basketball team.
Wouldn't surprise me at all if the college basketball team gets more support there in mid-November than that football team with 2 losses. They're in uncharted territory, uncharted waters for football. The basketball program is in perfectly good shape. They will win a ton of games. They'll score a ton of points, and they're one of those teams. I think when you get outside of Kansas and UConn and some of those teams, Alabama, very, one of those teams that pops up next. One of, I think, the 10 or so best teams in college basketball. Yeah, Alabama fans, don't feel too bad. You got a great college basketball team. Get behind them. If you're frustrated with football, just show it there on the hardwood.
Last week we talked about a Friday night game, UNLV Boise State. What was once Mr. Genti the favorite in the Heisman? Now I think he's third or fourth. Hats off to UNLV in slowing him down. The defense played great. They really slowed him down. Surprised at how they were able to slow him down. Surprised at what you saw Friday night between the two teams.
Surprised that they were able to execute. I think everyone knew the game plan was keep the ball out of Boise's hands as much as possible. If you could control time of possession, I think you felt like if you were UNLV, I think Odom probably thought he had a good chance to win if he could dominate the time of possession. They stayed to the script. It's a pretty, I guess, good thing when you only rush for 120 or 130 yards and a score, and everyone thinks you had a really bad day. He was most of his props in that 170 to 180 yards prop, and he's obviously touchdown prop is normally 2 or 2.5. So yeah, Genti was he was kept in check, but this was a solid win for Boise State, proving that you could get it done when your running back just has an okay day with I don't have what his yards per carry was. Well, anytime you go over 120 on the ground as a running back and score, pretty solid day. The fact that they were able to get a win, that's a good win. UNLV, one of those top 50 teams in our power rating. It's a good team. It was a good win. The number was really close. There were some fours for it. That number 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5. I think at some point during the week. So that was, obviously pays to shop at any point, but this was a number, if you took advantage and got a number that was to your advantage, you came out on top there. The odds makers were all over the closing number on this one. I was a bit more low scoring than I thought. I thought even with UNLV trying to slow the game down, I thought that would still be played in the 30s. I think our prop had it 3 or 3.5 points over that closing total. Our number on the game was in favor of Boise, ended up being pretty in line with the closing number. We played that one at 3.5 and 4. But yeah, I was a bit surprised that both teams didn't score. And that might have been, I think that was probably by design by Odom. He executed. They were just a couple, possession there short at the end. Good football game. It's a good one to watch. Jeannie, you mentioned in the Heisman conversation, goes from the favorite down to in that 3, 4, 5 range, depending on the book. And a lot of that is he was probably going to have to average 100. I mean, he was going to have 180, 190, 200 yards in that game and then continue, for the next 4 or 5 weeks to have that type of production, to have a realistic shot. It's just basic, the program that he plays for, no disrespect to Boise State, they're going to find a way to get that into a quarterback in the Power Five's hands. The fact that he had 120 on the ground and we considered a bad day and he falls in the Heisman is, maybe we had him a bit too high, but the stats are going to speak for themselves for him. He will deservedly be in attendance for the Heisman ceremony, but it's Dylan Gabriel's to lose at this point. That kid his stats right now are rivaling that of his running back counterpart there. What Dylan Gabriel is doing through the air right now, we haven't. We go back to Joe Burrow at LSU. That team, he was a really accurate quarterback with a ton of yards, a ton of touchdowns. Dylan Gabriel, slow out of the gate. That Oregon team didn't score a lot of points early. He is as efficient a quarterback or as a player as we have in college football, in my opinion. It's 250 right now on Dylan Gabriel is a steal. I think he is the winner. Barring injury this week would be maybe the only case. I don't see him winning. He would have to do something really bad in the next couple of weeks. It'd be a tough test at Michigan this week. Good defense. Maybe he struggles and his odds go up. But I think it's Dylan Gabriel's to lose right now.
And we were fortunate enough to grab him at 15-1 before the Ohio State game. So you're singing beautiful words right now to us here at ETSI and my portfolio there. There's a problem. The 12th man might have found a quarterback, and this is a team that lost to Notre Dame and had cheated up until, in comes LSU. We talked about the LSU quarterback. A&M really struggled the first half. Insert the new running quarterback in OMG, 4 possessions, 4 touchdowns. The names slip in my head, but the Aggies are cooking with Crisco right now, Tyler.
Yeah, number on, they go to South Carolina this week after an impressive home performance. Quarterback change there at halftime was with Marcel Reed. He comes in, dominates the second half, leads them through the air and on the ground. The kid is, he reminds me a lot of South Carolina's quarterback, Sellers. So, be some comps there this week. That number opening, in that 3 neighborhood, 2.5. We saw Circa, I think, open at 2.5. Our number on that game, 4.6. We played that at 2.5. It's an A&M team that I think is positioned to make a college football playoff appearance. This is a really, really well-coached team. Elko pulling no punches there at the press conference, after that win, kind of went to Jimbo Fisher with some of the comments that he made, saying that this wasn't just this isn't a politician's football program, or this, I like the chippiness that Elko brings. He's kind of he's a blue collar guy. He did it, the right way at Duke. He built the program there and has left them in good hands. I think there's a lot of carryover there. Duke's success this season is because of what Elko built and had instilled there. I like this guy. I was kind of unsure about the hire just because it's A&M and you can afford to go get literally anyone. They've proven me wrong in that regard. What he's done this season, I thought this was maybe in that Matt Rule conversation where A&M was it was going to be a year or two to get kind of his feet on the ground and kind of figure out what was going on. He has obviously all the money that he could ever hope for in NIL there. They're a very passionate fan base. He has a football team that is they have his back, which is big. I'm a big believer. If your kids will go out and lay it all on the line for you, if they respect you, this team loves him. This is a big game for them at South Carolina. That number, I thought it should have been closer to 4.5. They get a win here at South Carolina. This is an A&M team. They control their own destiny. They're in a position where they could maybe luck out and not have to play the SEC championship game, but also still be in the playoffs. So not have to play the extra game and still find themselves in that list of 12. Starts obviously Saturday with South Carolina. It was an impressive win against LSU. They were behind. Brian Kelly's not a guy that I like to root for a lot. He's just kind of did some things at Notre Dame, obviously. It kind of put him in the dirtbag category. He's just not a likable guy. Happy to see A&M come back. One, because we were on the right side of that number. Thought the number was off there at home against LSU. But two, I think this is, it's an SEC conference that had a lot of optimism, a lot of people talking about them coming into the season. There was a couple of disappointing weeks there, weeks 3, 4, where you're wondering, how good the SEC really was outside of maybe Georgia and Texas. Tennessee has stepped up with a big win at Alabama. A&M now, they deserve to be in that conversation with Texas, with Georgia, and with Tennessee. I think there are 4 really good teams in the SEC. A&M control their own destiny. Tennessee, obviously a game with Georgia yet to be played. But yeah, the SEC kind of back in to that conversation where they were at the beginning of the year, which was, how many teams do they get in? It's probably 3, could be 4. Guess you could maybe make a case for some of those 2-loss teams. Alabama maybe thinks they're not out yet. But yeah, A&M. This is an A&M team playing really inspired football. Quarterback change, I think, is going to help them. The fact that he's a freshman and doing what he's doing is certainly impressive. But yeah, big game on Saturday. Freshman goes on the road to a pretty hostile Columbia, South Carolina. They get a win there. Watch out, A&M will be on the top 10 doorstep, and then they're in a position to be a favorite to make the playoff here with just four or so weeks left in the season.
Before we get to your picks and leans for the weekend, I have there's a bunch of headliner or marquee games, but I wouldn't be doing my job to not bring up, of course, the game of the weekend. And of course, Ohio State travels to Penn State, a spot that Penn State's been in a lot, a spot that they have not been able to do is win this game. I'm not saying covering from a betting standpoint, but to win this game. And if you're Penn State, you saw what happened to Ohio State when they traveled to Eugene and Oregon. Okay, this is not a let's play a hard-fought game, take them down to the wire, and who walks it off for the field goal. I almost want to put this in a must-win spot, even if Penn State loses. Now, don't forget, Ohio State's got one loss now, so they'll be in that they'll be in that Alabama, LSU, and a bunch of those other two-loss teams if Ohio State loses. So I think Ohio State remembers the thought process when they went to Eugene. There's no excuses here for the Penn State. It's win or, yeah, we'll drop a handful of spots here, but there's no moral victories here in Penn State this week.
No, books open that one 3.5. I would be surprised if no one will go to 4. But I think it's safe to say 3.5 is as high as we'll see that number. You may see a 3 there in the next couple of days. Looking at the odds screen, I don't see one right now. It's a Penn State team. I'm not sure what to make of Penn State. There have been a couple of games where, they had to rally, obviously, to beat Southern Cal on the road. They looked pretty good this past weekend. It's an Ohio State team that struggled against a team in Nebraska who just gets absolutely blitzed. So week in and week out right now, it's really hard to figure out who's who. I thought I had a pretty good grasp of Ohio State going to Oregon. We played the Ducks there. So our numbers have been pretty in line with the odds makers. We haven't had an opportunity to back Ohio State. Won't do that on Saturday. Our number on this one was 2.9. So it's, half a point under where that 3.5 was. The total we have is 49.6. So it's almost 4 points above where the total sits. I think we took a position at 45.5. But yeah, this is an Ohio State team with 2 losses here. They go from 3 weeks ago, in most accounts, being the number 1 team in the nation. They lose a tough one to Oregon. We can't bump them down too far. We still think they're pretty safe in the playoff conversation. If they lose to Penn State, Michigan is not the Michigan of old, but that brings in, anytime you talk rivalry and an opportunity for Michigan especially to give Ohio State 3 losses and probably put them out of the playoff conversation, that game becomes a little tougher. But yeah, this is an Ohio State team. I hate to say must win, but it almost feels like it is. If they lose, they go from – if they win, they're probably 60% or close to 2/3, 66% of to being in the playoff. If they lose, I feel like they're like 1-3 or maybe 20%. Penn State with a loss, still in the conversation with 1 loss there. This is a big game. Maybe as big a game in this series as we've had in a long time. The number's really good. Won't be a play here. I have no idea who wins this game. If Aller struggles through the air and Penn State is forced to be one-dimensional and just run the ball, I think Ohio State can keep them from scoring and will be able to put up enough points to win. If they're balanced at all, Ohio State defensively, even last week, it is a Nebraska team that has playmakers. They weren't able to really dominate Ohio State through the box score, but they moved the football when they needed to. They were in a position to win that game in the fourth quarter. I think that should be enough for Ryan Day to use to wake up his team, and they should be focused. Penn State this Saturday will be that atmosphere will be what college football is made of. This would be as a neutral party, this would be a game that you and I could go to and just watch and enjoy 3 or 4 hours of great college football. I think Ohio State gets a win here, and that does for the big as far as the conference goes, it's probably a good thing. Penn State's still in the conversation. Ohio State's still in the conversation. Obviously, Oregon is pretty safe to go ahead and lock them in. But then you have a couple other teams that are trying to make a case. This is one of those I'm just going to sit back and watch. We have a little bit of action there on the total. This should be 3 hours of as good of college football as you could hope to see. Some people will mention it's the Big Ten. It's not, it's going to be ugly, gritty. I like watching that type of football. I like seeing points, but I like an old-fashioned college football game every once in a while is good, I think, for the soul. I'll be tuned in and watching, every minute of this one. Should be a good game. But yeah, total coin flip on who I think wins. I do think Ohio State has enough playmakers. They can go in and get a tough one, though.
Ryan, let's go to a quick commercial break. When we come back, I'm going to turn the stage over to Tyler with his selections for this weekend. Stay right tuned. ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app. And before I turn the mic over to you, Tyler, for this weekend's selections, a team we haven't talked about, which, again, you and I could talk for hours here between college football and college basketball, a team that lost its first game of the year and is really playing great ball. And we'll talk about them. Maybe we'll lead off next week with them, is Clemson. That's a team that I don't think still is getting enough respect. And what is going on in the ACC, I do know the U, I get it, but their defense has been shady at best, and we know about their coaching issues there with Cristobal in a tight situation. But this Clemson team, another team cooking with Crisco.
Yeah, did not look. First half against Georgia wasn't the whole game, I guess, wasn't good. First half, they played a solid half. Didn't look great in the second half against Georgia. Since then, they've been maybe one of the 4 or 5 best teams, I think, in college football. It's an ACC. 3 weeks in, I wasn't sure if there was any team outside of Miami that deserved to be in the conversation. We essentially have a play-in game this weekend with Pitt and Southern. Maybe you could make a case that one of the teams with a loss is still alive. I guess if Pitt loses, they're probably still in there. But at SMU, big game for Pitt to go on the road here. Miami's schedule sets up great for them. They're going to be a near double-digit or more favorite in every game coming down the wire. So it's safe to say that they're probably in the ACC championship game. Clemson, one test maybe before the end of the season. But yeah, this is a conference. SMU dodged a bullet there against Duke late on Saturday night last week. Pitt has found ways to win. They've been dominant on the ground. They've looked good offensively. And then in the Syracuse game, they have 87 yards, and it's a 31-6 football game. So they have found ways to win in different ways. This is an ACC conference over the last 2 or 3 weeks has improved. Ultimately, how many do they get in? I think it's 2. I feel like Pitt loses to SMU, and I feel like they take another loss coming down, and that you have Miami and Clemson are the final 2. I don't think that they get 3. I think if maybe Pitt runs the table and then loses in the conference championship game, you could maybe make a case where they get 3 teams. But yeah, Clemson, as good a football team right now as anyone in college football. Week 1, week 2, they were not. This is a team, Dabo Swinney, this is maybe as good a coaching job that he's done in his entire time at Clemson. This was, started out rough. There were a lot of Clemson fans upset. I tuned into a lot of teams' press conferences and beat writers. There were a lot of Tigers fans who were very ready to make a change there after that Georgia loss. I think a lot of those guys they've had to cook a lot of crow this season. This is a Clemson team right now you do not want to play. They figured a lot of things out. Really, really good team right now.
Yeah, I'm glad for Dabo. He's taken a lot of criticism with the transfer portal. It's almost one that he's going to do it his way or the highway. And the highway sounded pretty good, especially after the Georgia slacking. shellacking in what has transpired the last couple of years. No Trevor Lawrence, no Deshaun Watson. They've been looking for that quarterback. Well, they have gotten some solid quarterback play. Their defense has been the defense of old. And again, I had to bring them up. A great matchup, kind of comical that Clemson opened up 11-point favorites against a Louisville team that had been rounding into form and playing some good ball there. So we'll talk ACC next week. I'm going to hand you the mic, the stage. What do your eyes see? What is the market a tad off with your numbers? What are your selections for this weekend?
Yeah, Liberty game tonight. Market 2.5. That number. It's a Liberty team coming off of one of the worst losses maybe in the entire season. Kennesaw State last week as a 25.5 point favorite. They lose outright to Kennesaw State. I still have Liberty almost a possession better at home over Jackson State. I have them 7.4. It's pretty far off market there. It was an easy play for us at 1.5 or 2. Georgia, Florida. So rivalry game, 16-point spread here neutral. Obviously, the game in Jacksonville, Georgia. Our number on the game is 23.7. I think this is a great spot for Georgia. A touchdown over where that number is 16 right now, just about at every book. Pitt and SMU, just talked about that game. Our number on that game, 5.1. There's an 8 at South Point, plenty of 7.5s to be had. It's a really good Pitt team, well-coached, balanced offensively, and a good defense. SMU struggled against a mediocre Duke defense last week. They'll figure things out. They can score. This is a Pitt team that's really, really tough. I think anything north of 7 is a playable number there for Pitt. A&M, we mentioned. Our number 4.6, so it was 2 points over that 2.5 number. Saw it dip down to 2 at a couple of books. I think A&M better athletes on both sides of the ball. It's no knock on South Carolina. They have a number of kids. Sellers, the quarterback, stepped in. He's done great things. It's just an A&M team at every position. Just about they have the advantage. South Carolina 5-star freshman there on the defense, but this is an A&M team that should. If they don't turn the football over, if they at least tie the turnover battle, I think they win this one by a touchdown. But our number was 2 points, 2.5 points over. Oregon, Michigan. We saw 14 on the odd screen. We played that. Our number on the game is Oregon 17.1, so a field goal over 14. That number has risen over the last day or two. I don't know if 16 is probably where I cut off there. I think it's playable up to 16 for me. Illinois and Minnesota. It's a Minnesota team that's played better football. They were, in the first 3 weeks of the season, you couldn't make heads or tails of what Minnesota and PJ Fleck had done. They go to a team in Illinois who is coming off a beatdown at Oregon. Our number on this one right now, Illinois favored in the game. It's a small favorite, -1, but Minnesota right now, 3-point favorites. Illinois catching 3 at home, a pretty easy play. And then that last one was the Penn State total. 49.6 projected. I think this is in that 30-20 or 28-24 type of neighborhood. I think Ohio State gets a win. Wouldn't surprise me if they have to rally and get one, but I think Ryan Day lives to fight another day and keep his team with just one loss. Penn State with one loss still sets up really good for the next 4 weeks for them to still be in the conversation there for a playoff. I do think ultimately both teams get in. But I think Ohio State gets a tough fought win at Penn State.
Tyler, always a pleasure. Everyone watching here, standing room only on X. Go follow Tyler at Tyler Wyatt Bets, and of course at Odds Culture. Tyler, we can't thank you enough. Best of luck this weekend. Obviously in the games. Best of luck if you're cracking some aces on the felt, and we'll catch up with you next Wednesday, same time.
Absolutely. I have a little bit of college basketball to talk about Monday and Tuesday. Get underway.
We can't wait. We'll be talking college hoops definitely next week.
See you, JD.
Take care. The one and only Tyler Wyatt. Ryan, one quick commercial break. We'll wrap it up and give everyone our next show update, which is a day in advance. It's a travel day for this guest, so we'll be right back.
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no way, with a heavy metal. No time, no veil, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop, come on, take me higher.
Oh, I love me some Wednesdays. I can talk golf, college football, college basketball for hours. We try to keep it within an hour, so I apologize for a couple of minutes overtime here. Shout out to Brady Kannon at Las Vegas Golfer. Go follow him on Twitter. Tyler Wyatt at Tyler Wyatt Bets. And of course, the man behind the glass, Mr. Ryan Shanklin. We couldn't have done it without you. 3 o'clock today, not tomorrow, today. Lou Finicaro, Fight Night Fortunes, back with us to go over this weekend's UFC. We'll recap the UFC 308 as Topuria, the first one ever to knock out Max the Mouth Holloway. So 3 o'clock today, Lou Finicaro. The closing bell has not been shown this week after Monday. Our good buddy and co-host, Mr. Riley Magnuson, has been a little under the weather. Tomorrow, we're going to take that day off as well. We hope to get back on Friday with the Big Ten recap and get ready for the weekend and, of course, the closing bell. So, again, thank you, everyone. Don't forget today, 3 o'clock, Fight Night Fortunes with Lou Finicaro. Thanks again to Mr. Ryan Shanklin, the best producer in the world. Have a great morning. It's afternoon back east. We'll see you at 3 o'clock. Thank you.